And so you told me you flawed, what you do, what you've overcome, but who are you?
Can you give me an example? Like, what are we in what framework are we talking about? Like biologically
Uh,
or spiritual?
yeah, yeah. Who are you?
That's a great question. And it's easier to answer than you think, just by making some simple observations. Check this out. Welcome to the Power of Quiet, the practical way to self-realization. So if you want total control of your mind, your emotions, and to know beyond any doubt who and what you really are, then you've come to the right place. And what we do here is continue the work of Lester Levenson, a physicist and engineer who became self-realized back in 1952 and gave us a simple set of tools so that each of us can accomplish the exact same thing. Now, recently I watched an illuminating conversation between two YouTube personalities, Lee Peterson and Warren Smith. Now, Jesse is a conservative talk show host and a minister in Los Angeles. And while he's probably best known for trolling the libs and has some wildly provocative takes sometimes, that's not what I find particularly interesting about him. As you'll see in this video, Jesse's main goal, beyond ideology or politics, is to point out that what each of us should be striving for is a place of perfect peace and dropping all ego identification. And we accomplish that by dropping our anger, our fear, and other negative emotions. So while Jesse is coming from a religious perspective, the end goal that he's pointing towards is the exact same place that Lester is pointing towards. Now what Jesse does is he'll ask his guest what seems like a ridiculous or overly simplified question. And what unfolds is a juxtaposition between someone who, as Cesar Millan, the dog whisperer, puts it, someone who's coming from a place of quiet confidence versus someone who retreats into their mind to either avoid the question or try to explain it away somehow. And what Jesse does is he doesn't let them off the hook. He just stays with that question, almost ad nauseum, repeating it over and over again to the point where one might think that he's a little cuckoo in the head. But there's definitely a method to his madness. And one thing is absolutely clear to me, is that Jesse is someone who walks his talk. In my view, he doesn't have a mean bone in his body. And he's someone who has very little ego identification either. And also, he treats everyone the exact same way. He gives everyone that same treatment, pressing them doggedly with the goal to push them beyond their mind and start to see the real picture of why we're all here, who we are, what is our purpose here. Now, the person that he's interviewing, Warren Smith, he's a teacher of filmmaking and the arts who blew up this past year ever since a video of his went viral where he was having a conversation with some of his students over J.K. Rowling. And I like watching Warren. He's someone that I find very thoughtful and soft-spoken. And he seems like a very humble and genuinely nice person. And what Warren typically does in his videos is he analyzes debates and breaks them down in a very discriminating way to pick out what people are saying and uncover deception or mistakes in where they're coming from. and bringing a reality check to these debates and conversations. Now, while Warren is someone who relies on reasoning and logic, he also has a grasp of something beyond that. And he's seeking a higher wisdom from his own acknowledgement that comes from a place where the mind goes quiet. Yet, he's still relying on the mind, so that in this conversation where Jesse is really pushing him to go beyond the mind and see who and what he really is, Warren just can't quite grasp where Jesse's coming from. And it shows how all of us, we get hung up in our mind. And the fact is the mind will never understand God. It will never understand beingness. God and beingness are something that can only be experienced. We can only know it by experiencing it directly. And so what I'm going to do first is bridge the gap in this conversation between these two and show with clarity and simplicity where Jesse's coming from. And also, in an experiential way, I'll show how we can start to experience who and what we really are and know for a fact that we can go to this place of perfect peace, and that is exactly where we want to go. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just jump right into it. Check this out.
So you are Christian. Do you know God?
I think that when you can quiet your ego in the pursuit of wisdom, you can hear that voice ingrained within you. That's kind of the conscience, the Jiminy Cricket, that voice that resides in all of us if you have the wisdom to listen to it, but you have to control your ego to be able to hear it.
I'm going to stop it right here because this response shows a deeper understanding of God that goes beyond dogma and religion. You see, one can study spirituality, religion, philosophy, and gather all sorts of knowledge. But that, in effect, is like writing the word honey on a piece of paper. You can lick it, but you're not going to taste the sweetness of the honey. But when you quiet that dialogue that just typically runs nonstop, you start to hear another voice, deeper within, the Jiminy Cricket, as he puts it. And that voice, it comes from someplace deeper than the mind, beyond it. And another good word for that is intuition. Something that just comes to you instantly, effortlessly, and is never wrong. And by the way, when you look at all the different religious practices across the world, whether it's prayer, selfless service, yoga, mantra, meditation, they all serve the same general purpose: to quiet that mind. They're all practices that are designed to get that mind quiet so you get in touch with that God. But the main point that Warren is alluding to here is that the mind will never know God. You have to quiet it enough and go beyond that mind to taste that sweetness.
How do you control your ego?
Through logic and reason.
Meaning what?
So I'm in a negotiation right now with an alternative video platform they want sponsor ad reads and things, and it's a back and forth, and you feel if you were to act out of ego, emotion is the death of reason, and emotion comes from ego. It's just looking at it objectively and recognizing it's business. It's not personal. I need to do what is logical to achieve the ideal outcome. And if I need to be clear that, look, I understand this is what I can do, and I can't do what you guys are asking me to do, and no hard feelings if that doesn't work. It's that kind of approach. Or if it's in a debate, I don't even approach them as a debate, even if they are in a debate. And I've had some interesting debates with high profile, some of the best debaters right now in the world, I would say. And I always frame it as a conversation, regardless of how they want to frame it. I think to answer your question, you have to go into that because you can only lose if you're playing to win. So the answer to your question is don't try to win. If your ultimate goal is the pursuit of truth and learning, then there's no such thing as losing. Because if you make a mistake, if they trap you, you can't be trapped. You just acknowledge where you made a mistake. And then you grow. So there's only growth.
While Warren says logic and reason, I would refine that to use the word discrimination. Discrimination is simply the ability to see the plain truth that's right in front of your eyes, that's unquestionable. And one way to identify how we could use discrimination is looking at the mind as having three aspects to it. The first aspect is what we would call the sensing aspect, where we sense things like it's hot or it's cold. And we have that, and animals have that. The second aspect is something that we would call the recording and playback aspect, where the mind, what it really does is it's just a recording and playback machine. It records things, it stores all that information like in a database, and then it plays it back to you, whether you want to listen to it or not. And again, we have that and animals have that. So, for example, if you take a baby elephant and tie a rope around its leg and stake that rope into the ground where it can't move, it records into its mind, as long as there's a rope around my leg, I can't move. So even when it grows up and it's a full-size adult, they still tie that same little rope around its leg. And oftentimes don't even bother staking it into the ground, because that elephant has recorded it into its mind, hey, there's a rope around my leg. I can't move. And this is the most detrimental and destructive aspect of the mind, because it leaves us on automatic, without clarity. Now, the third aspect of the mind is something that us humans have that animals don't have, and that is the ability to discriminate. And I'll give you an example. Say you're driving down the road, and someone cuts you off, and they hit the brakes, and on top of that, they stick their hand out and they flip you the bird. At first, you might go on automatic. Your blood boils, the anger comes up, and before you know it, you're speeding after this guy, chasing him down so that you can catch up to them and let them know what you think about them. So you do that, you catch up to them at the next red light, and you're about to roll down your window and you look over, then all of a sudden you notice they're 280 pounds of pure muscle. They're built like a linebacker. All of a sudden the discrimination kicks in. Whoa, wait a minute. Maybe I won't mess with that person. Maybe I'll just let go of this anger now. And see, that ability to discriminate is what enables us to take ourselves off of automatic, out of our ego habits, and be in control of our mind. And I'll give you an example of how we typically go on automatic and mess ourselves up. You see, we all have this tendency to beat ourselves up when we make a mistake, right? It just automatically happens, right? I made a mistake. And all of a sudden that mind comes in. Oh, how stupid of that. How could you do that? What a loser you are. You never do things right. And it just lays into you on and on and on. And then we just get wrapped up into this funk of disapproving of ourselves. And sometimes we think that it's just a natural thing that we do, and sometimes it's good for us, it motivates us. But if we stop and discriminate, wait a minute, how does that help me to beat myself up? What does that accomplish? Nothing. And who's doing it? Well, I'm doing it. Well, if I'm doing it, and it's not accomplishing anything, it's just making me feel bad and digging me deeper into a hole, well, how about I make a decision? I'm going to be positive and love myself, or I'm going to be negative and beat myself up. What do I decide to do now? Right? Once you stop and you discriminate, that answer is indisputable. It's obvious. It makes no sense to beat myself up. And the moment you do that, you take yourself off of that automatic habit, and then You start pointing yourself towards solutions. All right, so let's continue.
Do you create your own thoughts? You mentioned thoughts, how they come. Do you create your own thoughts?
I think our subconscious is extremely powerful. That's one of the reasons I think we all have the capacity to, I think like the voice of God is that instinctive, it's often that instinctive feeling that is subconscious that happens without us even realizing it. So there's almost two levels of thought. There's the subconscious and then the conscious. I control the conscious. Right, so I have those. Okay, a beautiful woman walks by you on the street. You might feel attraction without meaning to or wanting to. You feel, but how you respond to that feeling is in your control. Now we're talking about the conscious level. I do have control of that conscious level.
I'm black and slow, so I didn't get that. Do you create your own thoughts?
At the conscious level, do I create my own thoughts?
Yeah.
I control my own. I create some of my thoughts, and I control my thoughts at the conscious level.
Okay, so you create some of your thoughts.
Yes.
Give me an example of a thought that you create.
So when I was fired, every impulse was take these people down and fight back, which many would say would be the logical course of action. But then I think about it, I meditate on it. There's trails near my house where I just walk and walk and walk. My mind was just racing for days, trying to figure out what would be the right thing to do. And in those moments I pray, and I would say the result of those moments, that is the act of creating a thought. You're pursuing the right answer.
Tell me the step you take, 1, 2, 3, 4, the step you take to create your own thoughts.
I hadn't thought about it to that level necessarily. Let's see. The first step is remove emotion, look at it rationally with logic. You have to identify what your ultimate goal is in order to determine the right move on the chessboard. So I would say that would be my first response to that. But then there's also the prayer form of trying to figure out the right move. So then I try and quiet my mind and ego and listen to that voice inside me that I do think resonates a higher power. And I think you can hear it if you're aligned in that way. If you can align, you can hear it, and then you just trust, like you can feel that it's right to not skewer the school publicly. You want to. Fox News will do an article. It would be logical. They have it coming, but it doesn't, for some reason, it doesn't feel right. Now I'm creating a thought process. I'm going to make a different move. And I can't quite tell you the logical reason, but I feel like it's going to play out for the best. And that's the voice of God, I think.
Now, this is a brilliant question posed by Jesse, because most of us really don't understand the mind and make it out to be way more complicated than it needs to be. But let's just make a simple observation right now. Just observe your mind. What is it? How do you experience it? It's a sound in your head, a voice that's talking to you, right? Well, where did it come from? Who gave it to you? Did your parents give it to you? Did society give it to you? Did God give it to you? It's your voice, isn't it? And notice that while sometimes it plays a nice sound, most of the time it's not so nice. Probably greater than 90% of the time. It's coming from fear, worry, frustration, dissatisfaction, judgment, all that stuff. And here's the thing. Who said that you had to listen to it? And who's it talking to? Just let that sink in. If that voice is talking to you, if you're listening to the mind, who's the one who's listening? All right, let's continue.
Why do you create thoughts that bring you misery?
Because those are often occurring that's when you give in to the subconscious impulses.
No,
The woman walks by
if
you on the
create
street.
thoughts, why do you create thought? Excuse me. Why do you create thought that builds you up? As soon as you build up, you think things are fine. You create some more thoughts that bring you down, and then now you're down, and now you want to go back up again. So you create thought. If you are the creator of your own thoughts, why do you do that to yourself? Why do you create those kind of thoughts for yourself?
Because they often have great utility. So let's go through they often have great utility. So let's go through what you just described, because that's YouTube. So you're on a run, things are going good, and then you do create those thoughts of what's going to happen tomorrow. That negotiation with that other platform that wants the ad reads, they're trying to screw me over. I got to be really careful about that. There's danger. And I often read more into situations from a level of paranoia because I think there is utility in that paranoia. Like the expression oftentimes in these games, it's the paranoid survive, but...
So why do you create a paranoia situation for yourself? That's misery.
If you let it control you, it can lead to misery.
But why do you create... So you're saying that you deliberately create a paranoid situation for yourself?
I think it's me looking at worst case scenarios because, as I described earlier, I am trying to identify the best move on the chessboard and plan for all other eventualities and anticipate what the other opponent is going to do. So you do kind of need to think about what's the worst case scenario. And when you think about the worst case scenario, that can lead to paranoia.
But if you're in control of your own thoughts, why would you create that for yourself?
Because you need to identify what the best move on the chessboard is, and you have to be able to anticipate what your opponent is thinking. You have to think like your enemy, your opponent.
But it doesn't work.
And when you start thinking about like your opponent, that can take you might be dealing with someone who's not balanced, but you still have to figure out what they're doing and what their thought process is. So that's a moment where you're creating thoughts for a strategic reason.
That's amazing.
Now here, Jesse's really driving the point home. I mentioned before that the mind, in essence, is just a recording and playback machine. In other words, the mind works just like a computer. And what Jesse's pointing out is, you're the programmer. All your thoughts, all your feelings, you programmed into your mind. And one of the ways that this happens is whenever you have a situation that disturbs you, maybe a situation that brings up fear or frustration, anger, and so on. Paranoia, we'll use that as an example. Now, when these feelings come up, nobody likes paranoia. Nobody likes fear or frustration. And so when we have these feelings in the moment, we push them down, we suppress them. We're like, ugh, I don't like you. Get out of here. But when we push our feelings down, we suppress them, we push them into our subconscious. And they run just like a virus in a computer. They affect the way that we feel, that we think, the decisions that we make. And on one hand, that mind will tell us, well, these negative feelings are a good thing. They keep us on guard. They keep us looking out for danger. They're there as pro-survival mechanisms. And they're a natural part of our psychology and biology. But if we stop and discriminate, the more we do that, we'll see that all these feelings, these negative ones, they're not pro-survival. They're in effect anti-survival. They get us into way more trouble than they help us. And what if we didn't need the paranoia? What if instead, in the situation like Warren's talking about, where we have a business decision to make, who needs to make those decisions from paranoia? What about coming from a place of clarity, confidence, centeredness? That's a arguably higher energy to come from that'll help you take more effective action than coming from a place of paranoia. And who wants to feel paranoia anyway? Let's continue.
Thoughts?
Do you have anger?
I do.
You do?
Yeah.
And
Do you not? You
how
don't ever
did
get
you
angry?
become angry?
How do I become angry?
How did you become an angry person?
I never said I was an angry person. I
How
said
did you
sometimes I
create
feel
anger for yourself?
How do I create anger?
How did
for
you do
myself?
that? How did you become angry?
I wouldn't say I'm angry.
How did
Occasionally I can
you have
get,
anger inside of you, right?
we all have the capacity to get angry from time
And
to
so
time. Because that also has utility, Jesse. Think about that.
And so you
Because
have
if someone's
anger,
breaking into my house to hurt my family, anger is going to pump me full of adrenaline and give me that a superpower in a way, because there's actual utility in that moment. Who's not to say that this is part of God's design as well, to help us protect our families when we need it?
Now, I have to point out that this is a big mistake made by the world of psychiatry and psychology, thinking that emotions and feelings are natural phenomena. They're natural to us, to our biology, to our psychology, and we just have to live with them. And the best that we could do with our emotions is just tweak them a little bit, adjust them so that they're more tolerable. But like I said before, emotions are just programs, and they're not even real. Now, Lester was a scientist, and he's very practical. When Lester posed the question to himself, what is truth? The simplest definition of truth is something that never changes. Because if something changes, either it wasn't true before it changed, or after it changes, it's no longer true after that. So truth is something that is changeless, is always true. And so if feelings are something that are supposed to be true and natural to us, then why is it that two people can stand on the edge of a cliff? One person can be shook with fear, wanting to get away from that cliff's edge. And then the other person can just be perfectly relaxed with zero fear and just standing there enjoying the view. If fear was true, then it would be true for everyone. But we see there's levels of fear, and sometimes fear comes and it goes. So how true can it be? Now, in a moment, I'm going to take you through a simple exercise to show you how you can actually let go of fear, of frustration, some of these other negative feelings that you might be struggling with. Not just manage them or bury them, but actually let them go where they're gone. And that'll show you just how real that they are if you could just let them go like that. All right, I'll show you that in a little bit. Let's continue.
Like, can you not think, like, can you think of a time when anger would have real utility?
No. But I want to
No?
know from you, you say, so it sounds like you said that it's not from God, but then you say it is from God. Which one is it?
Well, if anger has no, let's go with yours. Anger has no utility then. So let's say I'm wrong, where if someone were to try and hurt my family, that carnal response ingrained within us, if it's ingrained within us, it seems like it has utility in that moment. I understand that without wisdom, anger can take us in dangerous places. If it has no utility, though, I do think it might, maybe I'm wrong about people breaking in your house and anger would give you that. Maybe it would be purely love, but I just think the world's a bit more complicated.
I love Jesse's response to the question, does anger have any utility? No. But from Warren's point of view, and from the point of view to the logical mind, anger would have a utility. It would have a purpose. And I can demonstrate that by showing you this chart right here, the scale of emotions. And these are common feelings that we all experience. And on this chart, you see that there's a pyramid here that's darker at the bottom and gets lighter at the top. And what that represents is, at the bottom of the scale, the feelings are the heaviest, like apathy. It's one of the heaviest feelings that we could have. It weighs us down so much that we don't have any energy. We don't even want to get out of bed. And grief, likewise, is a heavy energy. And fear also is a heavy energy. Now, from Warren's example, if somebody breaks into your house and you're coming from fear, well, anger could be useful because it can lift you up from a heavier place where you're kind of stuck and frightened into a more higher active energy where you could take action and get something done. But what if you didn't have any fear? Then what would you need the anger for? And if you look at this chart, you keep moving up. It gets lighter and lighter. And up here you have courageousness, acceptance, and peace. And from this perspective, what do you need anger for? Anger's a heavier feeling. It weighs you down. And so if you want to take effective action and you want to take efficient action, wouldn't it make sense to not have to fight through your anger and other feelings in order to get that action done? If you could let all of these feelings go and just have nothing there and just be up in courageousness, acceptance, and peace all the time, how effective would you be? You could take very positive action from up there. And that's the point that Jesse's making.
One, who are you?
This is the most interesting interview I've had. This has been a pleasure. Who am I?
I'm totally enjoying talking to you too, man. Who are you?
I'm a flawed...
You what?
I'm a flawed individual who has been on quite a journey. I love fiercely and I'm doing my best. And I seem to be blessed with the ability to control my emotions in a way that I thought was just normal. And it doesn't seem remarkable to me. But when I started making content, people are always commenting on, he's so patient. He doesn't get angry. That seems to be one of the things I've been blessed with. But that seems to have, I do think that has come from a lot of tribulations.
And so you told me you flawed, what you do, what you've overcome, but who are you?
Can you give me an example? In what framework are we talking about? Like biologically or spiritual?
Yeah. Who are you?
I'm a father and a husband who's providing for his family and doing my best.
You told me what you have and what you do, but who are you?
A creature of the Creator. Is that what you mean? A son of God?
What would you do if you had no anger, if you had no identity at all? Who would you be?
I don't think there's any way to answer that question.
Why not?
Because I would have no identity. There's no way to identify anything if it has no identity.
So then why do you say you're all those things you told me that you were? Your husband, your father, you've been through tribulation, you did.
Yep.
Why do you call those things you?
Because when I ask myself that question, I'm trying to respond in the most concise way, and those are the things that rise to the surface.
And what will happen if you stop identifying with those things?
Nothing much.
Why don't you give it a try and see what happens?
Now notice what happens when Jesse asks this question, who are you? And I've seen him ask a number of people this question, and the result is typically the same. The person flips through the files in their database looking for that answer. Oh, I'm this, I'm that, I'm this, I'm this other thing. They go flipping through their mind, and it's feeding the information, telling them who they are. When the real point is, who's flipping through that database? Who does that mind belong to? When it's talking to you, who's it talking to? Pay attention to that right now. Pay attention to the witness that's right here, witnessing me talk to you. That part of you, if you look at it, it's obvious. And it has no face, it has no name, it has no boundaries, it has no beginning, no end. And like I said before, Lester defined truth as that which never changes. When you focus on who is here right now, just witnessing this moment, witnessing your life as it passes you by, that witness has never changed. Go back to when you were a child, and you were there witnessing all of your trials and tribulations in your childhood, all your problems and struggles. You just watched what was going on right in front of your eyes, almost like a movie playing out in front of you. And then fast forward to when you go to college, and you have different struggles, different problems, but there's always someone there witnessing what was happening there. And it's that same witness that's right here, right now. And that nameless, faceless witness has never, ever changed throughout your whole life. Now, everything else in your life changes. Your body changes. The world changes. But the one who has always been there to witness all those changes pass by has never changed. So the answer to the question, who are you, is immediately obvious once you look at it. Now, I mentioned before that every spiritual practice and religious practice, effectively, is all designed to quiet your mind. Now, there's a master by the name of Ramana Maharshi, and he has his own practice, and it's a more analytical, discriminating practice to find the way to freedom. And it simply goes, who am I? But the purpose of that is not to answer that question. In fact, this is what Ramana Maharshi himself says. The question, who am I, is not really meant to get an answer. The question, who am I, is meant to dissolve the questioner. So just reflect on that for a moment. And one thing you could say to yourself right now, just gently, is just say to yourself, I am. I am. I am. Has there ever been a time when you were not? If you look into your mind, it only has a limited memory, and it'll tell you, well, I can't remember anything before I was born. But you are. Maybe you always have been. Maybe you always will be. Now, Lester's message is simple. Just identify with I. Only I, with nothing added to it. Just like Jesse says. Let go of all your ego identification. Be nothing. Just I, I, all alone. That's where the truth is. All right, so I'm going to show you a simple exercise to show you how to drop some of these negative, unwanted feelings, such as fear, frustration, guilt, whatever it is that bothers you. But before I do, I want to point out that if what I've been showing here in this video resonates with you, I have a whole course that shows you in great detail what Lester's method is all about, and shows you in very simple, practical ways how to undo your ego, how to quiet your mind, and quickly see who and what you really are. You have to guess about it, and the best thing about this course is that it is 100% experiential. Meaning you don't have to take anything on faith or belief, but you get to be a scientist and prove this all for yourself. So I'm going to leave a link to that in the description below in this video. It's called the 21-Day Mastering Your Fate course. And also, I'll drop a link to a channel with some of Lester's talks. So if you want to hear from Lester in his own words, which is quite remarkable. You may have heard from other masters like Eckhart Tolle and Yogananda and Ramana Maharshi, like I mentioned before. But a lot of these spiritual masters and gurus, they tend to talk in big metaphors and kind of talk around the subject. But Lester is very direct. Not many of these masters are just point blank like he is. And so I think you'll find it very refreshing if you haven't listened to Lester before. He's very practical. And again, I'll leave a link so you can hear what he has to say for yourself. And also, around the year, I do a number of live 6-week courses that takes you through Lester's method and gets you to apply it to different areas of your life, whether it's health, whether it's your finances, your relationships, so you can let go of all of your non-loving feelings in all these areas and all these viruses that you programmed inside of yourself to free yourself of all that stuff, clear your mind of all the blockages, all the noise that's in your mind that says, I can't, I'm not good enough, it's impossible, and on and on and on. And so you get all that out of the way, and all that you're left with is just talking to that intuitive voice inside of you that's never wrong. And it is possible to just operate from your pure intuition all the time. And that is not only a place where you're most effective in getting things done in this world, but you're in the most enjoyment and happiness, in a place where you have total happiness and nothing and no one can take that away from you, no matter what. That's what it means to be a master. So the next upcoming class, I'll leave a link to that below. And now I'll show you a simple way to drop some of these unwanted feelings. All right, so take a look at something that you're afraid of. Maybe think about something that you wouldn't want to have happen to you. You got some fear? All right, think about something that stirs up your fear. Now, I mentioned before that the mind is just a recording and playback machine. So from the neck up, all that thing does is it records things and it plays them back to you, whether you want to listen to them or not. But from the neck up, there's no erase button. Now, where you do have an erase button is down below your neck in your stomach or chest area. So think about something that you're worried about, that you're fearful, you wouldn't want to have happen to you. And as you think about it, I want you to pay attention to how you feel in your stomach or chest. And if it helps you, you can close your eyes and put your head down towards your stomach or chest, just so you can focus your attention there. And when you think about this thing that you're worried about, notice if it brings up a tightness or contraction, kind of like a clutching feeling right there in your stomach or chest. You notice that? That clenching feeling? And what that contraction is your body letting you know that you're suppressing that fear, you're pushing it down. And it doesn't go anywhere. In fact, the more you suppress it, the more you accumulate it. And you add more fear and more and more and more as time goes by. So instead of doing that, just open up an imaginary window or door right in front of that contraction. Wherever it is that you feel it, just open up an imaginary door right in front of it. And imagine that contraction is just energy, all balled up, tight there. But it's just energy. Now imagine that energy just going out the door now. You can imagine it however you like. You can see it as smoke just drifting out the door, or water flowing out, or bubbles coming out, whatever. There's no right or wrong way to imagine it. Just open up that door and watch the energy go out the door. And a little bit more. And a little bit more. And some more. And it's just energy passing through. You don't need to examine it. It's not good. It's not bad. It's just energy passing through. Just open up. Let it pass through even more. And a little bit more. And a little bit more. And even more. And even more. And a little bit more. All right? Now see how you feel. Just notice if you feel a little bit lighter. That's all we're looking for. Just a lighter feeling. Feel a little bit lighter? That's showing you that you're moving in the right direction and that you can actually let that fear go. You don't have to fight with it anymore. You don't have to suppress it, hide it, or manage it. You just open up the door and just let it pass through. Let it evaporate and dissolve. Now welcome up some more fear. Just invite it up. Discriminate. What do you need the fear for? How does it help you? How does worrying help you? Have you ever worried yourself out of a problem? So just feel it. Feel that contraction in your stomach or chest. Wherever it is, just open up an imaginary door right in front of it. And just let the energy go out the door. Just let it evaporate and dissolve. And more. And even more. And even more. And even more. And even more. All right? And see how you feel now. See if you feel a little bit lighter. Again, that's all we're looking for. Now, take a look at that thing that you're worried about, or that scary situation. And see if you're as bothered now as you were a few moments ago. You notice a difference? Maybe it's not such a scary situation. Maybe now you feel a little bit more courageous, like, well, if it happens, I'll take care of it. Not a problem. And see, that is that inner voice, your intuition, that's always positive and always right. And you see, you have a different picture about the situation. And if you let go of all of your fear and all of your other feelings, what would you be holding in mind all the time? And wouldn't that be worth it? So again, there's a whole course that'll take you through all the fundamentals of Lester's method. And you'll find that it's simple and it's easy, and you get very fast results that are 100% experiential, meaning they're true for you and you know it. You know it firsthand for yourself. So I invite you to join us and join Lester's method and make the most out of it and realize who you really are.